off the bat of
What? I
Rafael
didn't read
Devers.
it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, how'd you not hear about this? This was last season.
I
This was
didn't.
massive. I mean, I thought I had to go in
Okay.
the IL. Actually, I was down for probably about 3.5, 4 weeks, but I still powered through and showed up to work every single day because I post. That's what we do. And
What?
yeah, this was in Cleveland last year, late last year in Cleveland, and on at Progressive Field in Cleveland, we're on the first base side. So Devers is a lefty, so his back is to us actually. And that whole thing I told you about, if it's a right-handed hitter, then you got to watch out on your right-hand side, or if it's a lefty, you kind of got to watch out from this direction. So if the person is facing you, you got to watch out for a foul ball potentially hitting you. But Devers, in a non-traditional way, because he's a non-traditional player, he does things that players can't do. He actually has his back turned. So traditionally, you're usually safe if you're looking at the batter and their back is turned to you. But Devers,
Right.
because he can turn on anything, he just like turned completely and like made contact with the baseball in that direction to me at first base, and it came in so hot. I mean, we got things to uh, to quantify these things now. We can measure the speed in which a
Right.
baseball leaves the bat. So Statcast said this was 109 miles per hour, 109.3 to be completely exact, off the bat, and maybe 50 feet between us. So you think it's really not losing much steam. This ball did bounce once, so maybe lost a few MPHs, but it came in so fast. All I can do was I saw him turn at me, the ball's coming, and I literally only had time to be like, "Ugh," and react. So I ducked down like that, and the ball caught me square in the ribs right here, like right above my
Oh,
pectoral muscle. And I mean, it knocked the wind out of me. So our director, Ben Johnston, and OB was on the call. Will Middlebrooks was there as well. And Will, he's always, he treats me like a little brother, even though I'm older than he is. He's like, "Oh man, toughen up, you're okay," like whatever. And I'm like, dude, first off, I haven't even like said I'm okay. I could seriously be hurt, which I wasn't, but I
yeah.
was. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh man, just dust it off, throw some dirt on it, whatever." And then Ben, our director, he was in the truck. He's like, "Give us a thumbs up, or like tell us you're okay." So I give a thumbs up because it knocked the wind out of me. I literally could not breathe. So I give a thumbs up, and he's like, "No, we need a verbal." He's telling me this in my ear. We wear these earpieces. So he's telling me I need a
Yeah.
verbal. And I'm like, "Oh, I'm okay, guys. Thanks." And I come back up, pop up on camera, and they're showing me. And I'm literally hurt here. I'm really hurt. Like I feel like crying. But because the cameras are rolling, I have to really be tough. So it was just one of those things where it's shocking. Like you brace for impact, but you don't really know how much it's going to hurt until it actually hits you. So that got me. So then, like, I actually was okay. I was a little bit in shock, kind of, I guess, because I
Yeah.
was like, that hurt, but also, like, I survived it. So I'm good. And I like it's hurting, but the adrenaline was rushing. Like, you feel so much
Yeah.
adrenaline. And that began to wear off. And that's when I was like, oh, this is actually really hurting. So then one of our great producers back at Nesson, supervising producer Denny Ayat, he calls the clubhouse. And I don't know how he got the number, by the way. I don't know how he got the number to the clubhouse at Progressive
Seriously.
Field in Cleveland. But he calls the clubhouse. He gets on with the medical. He's like, "You got to go check on our guy." So the trainers literally come out. They're like, "We just got called from Nesson saying, did you get hit or something?" Because they were obviously working on players, people who are rehabbing back in the clubhouse, getting work during the game because obviously pregame, the guys who are actually playing are getting their work. So that was their time. So one of the trainers comes out, a guy we call Dolo, Anthony Sarandolo, and he's checking on me. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got hit with a baseball. I think I'm good." He's like, "No, they say we got to check you out." So in the middle of the game, it's like the sixth inning, I go in the back. He checks me out, and then I take off my shirt and everything. Like I'm in my suit. I have to
Yeah.
deep
Yeah.
throw from the top up. He's like, "Take it all off." So I'm taking off my jacket, my suit. I'm in there half naked in the Red Sox clubhouse, and like the PR staff is back there for some reason during the game. I don't know. So like the trainers are back there, the clubhouse manager. They're all looking at me like, "Dude, what the hell is going on right now?" I'm like, "Oh, I got pelted by a ball or whatever." So he's checking me out, and immediately, like it was already starting to like have some centralized bruising, like it was bruising already. He's like, so he's touching it, and I'm like, "Oh, that hurts, man! Like, stop!" So he's poking and prodding. He's like, "Oh, it's definitely a contusion or whatever." He's working around it, and he gives me like this patch. He's like, "Just wear this. This will kind of subdue some of the swelling, but it's gonna hurt. I don't know if it's broken. Like we don't have an X-ray machine, but We'll take it day by day. So I get patched up, go back out there, all good. Wake up. So then the game's over, and I know this is a very long story. Long story short, but game's over. We go back to the hotel, and we're traveling to New York after that because this was a getaway day. This is a getaway night. Traveling to New York. So I'm like, now I'm really starting to feel like I'm in pain. Like I can't breathe that great. It's hurting. It's tough. So I get back to the hotel. Like I had an ice pack and everything. Get back to the hotel, go to sleep that night. I could not sleep because my rib was hurting so bad. It felt like I was in a heavyweight fight, like Tyson punched me. And the worst part about it, like I go up to Devers afterwards, who hit me, and I'm like, "Hey man, now I know what it's like. You know what I mean? To be Bean, like this is I'm one of the guys now." And he was like, "No, like you like now you see." He was like, "Now you see." He had no sympathy for me whatsoever. So get to New York, we're playing the Yankees the next day, and now I'm in real pain. Like I wake up in the morning hurt. So now, like they're checking in with me. Our old boss, Howard Zolkowitz, is like, "How you doing?" I'm like, I'm actually hurting pretty bad. I probably should get this checked out." So then he has connections in New York, and he sets it up with the Yankees staff that I'm going to go see their doctor, their team doctor.
Oh my God!
Like, yeah, so it's just like this whole big thing. I don't know if I've ever even told this story in this much great depth, but next day we go to the Yankees, and I'm still like, I got a job to do. Like I'm on the job, like I'm working, I'm getting pregame stuff, and like trying to, do my thing, but also in pain at the same time. So the game's getting ready to start. Is like, what time is good for you? I'm like, let's do it like the second inning, because now the Yankees, they've got their injured players getting seen by the doctor using the X-ray machine, whatever. And one of the guys who was on the IL was Aaron Judge at the time. So I'm now they've got me, and I'm back in the halls of Yankee Stadium. I go there, knock on the door, and they're like, "Oh, we were waiting for you. We're expecting you." It's the Yankees team doctor, Dr. Troth, I think is his name.
Okay.
And very nice guy. So it's like I'm at the doctor's office, like taking me through the whole nine, checking my vitals, all that stuff, checks my ribs. He's like, "Oh, let me see." So he does the whole deal, touching it, seeing everything. And I'm like, "Oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts." He's like, "Okay, well, we can't see if it's broken or anything, but, you're not having trouble breathing that much aside from the centralized pain." I'm like, "No." He's like, "Is it like, how's your breathing?" I'm like, "It seems okay. It's just like any deep breath would hurt a little bit." He's like, "All right, so no blood's coming up, nothing like that." Because he's like, "You could have a punctured lung." Like that was the concern. Like if you got a broken rib or something and go into your lungs or something. So then I see him. I go into the X-ray machine. He says, "You got to wait. We got somebody getting X-rayed." So I'm sitting in the hallway having a conversation with him or whatever. So I'm like, "Oh, somebody getting X-rayed. I wonder who this could be." And he's trying to be like really discreet. Him, the athletic trainer, is there as well. And then one of the X-ray technicians. So I'm sitting there having conversations with him. And then all of a sudden the door opens and it's Aaron Judge. And he's like 6'8", right? So his like head is like almost hitting the door. So Aaron Judge comes out, and I've like, I've gotten to know him a little bit over the years, but not really like that. But I did a game when I did a freelance game one time, a national TV game. I got a chance to interview him. So, that's one time we had a real like conversation and got, some background on each other. So then he sees me, he comes out, he's like, "Oh, what's up, man?" I'm like, "What's going on, Aaron? How you doing?" He's like, "I heard you got smoked." And I'm like, "Man, dude, news travels fast." He's like, "Who got you?" I'm like, "Devers, man." He's like, "Oh, you got to watch out for that," because everybody knows he's got exceptional bat speed, elite bat speed. So he's like, "You got to watch out for that." So I'm like, "Geez, the whole league knows that I got smoked by a foul ball." And it just reminded me that, these games are on in clubhouses around the league. So they see a lot of people who are on air. But he was like, "Oh, you got to stay, you got to be aware of that thing." And I was like, "How are you doing?" Because he had just injured his foot by running into the wall at Dodger Stadium. They had just gone over there. So he like broke his toe or something. But I was like, this is definitely going to go in my autobiography one day, just like down at the Yankee Stadium. And I run into Aaron Judge and he knew what happened. So I thought that was pretty cool. So I get the X-ray. They determined that I didn't have a broken rib, but they couldn't really tell because you can't really tell. It could be like microfractures, the doctor says, but he's like prescribed me some Advil, whatever. And he sent me on my way, but it hurt for like another 4 weeks after that. But the like moral of the story, I guess,
breathing in or just or moving,
yeah,
like everything.
Yeah, just breathing in, movement. So breathing in was like a week and a half, like deep breaths. Movement definitely lasted probably like 3.5 weeks, and then like sensitive to touch, it was like a month until that felt good. So like having my kids jump on me and stuff was like, oh, not great.
When it comes to an end, whether it's the postseason or the end of the regular season, it's like, oh man, like, all right, this is it for the year. It's crazy. So yeah. So that was sort of the thing I had going.
Yeah. I mean, classy group.
Yeah, definitely. From afar, I saw the same thing, and I feel like I always see the same thing with the Bruins, but I liken it to like being on a moving train, and the thing is going 100 miles an hour, and then when the season ends, like it abruptly stops, and it sends like a shock to your nervous system in a way. And then you got, as you talked about, guys, like it's not, it's not, I don't know what word is lessen or less than I guess feeling emotion, but it's almost a little emotional in a sense because like you get into this routine, like you're used to it, and then all of a sudden that's it, it's over. Like the lockers are cleaned out, these guys are going their separate ways for the summer, and now you
It's
kind
a
of go
letdown.
off into yeah, for sure. So I feel like I felt the same thing in 2022 with the Red Sox, more so than any other year because they had just come off a playoff run that was incredible that, nobody expected them to do, 2 games shy of going to the World Series. And like they lost it. And we talked about this a little bit too last week, Adam. I think we brought it up about, the Nathan Eovaldi high strike that never was called that basically changed the complexion of that series. But they end the series and then you're like back in Boston and guys are cleaning out their lockers. Some people are going their separate ways even before then. You don't see them again. And there's a huge roster of people, and some guys, like you said, won't be back the next year. Like this was like a one and done thing, and then the reality of that sets in, and then it's like, man, this was a great person, or this was a great player, and you guys had a great relationship, and now you don't know when you see these people again, or like when your paths will cross, and that part is a little bit difficult, just on a humane level. If you've got this working relationship with somebody, not knowing what their next step is, it's pretty much like I said, a shock to your system. So I completely understand it, even from a different sports perspective. It's like the same situation.
Yeah, no, I wanted to ask you about the difference between, or I mean, I know you haven't done a Bruins one, but what it's like in the Red Sox room. But I just want to say quick that I think letdown's a great word, and it is a shock. It's like it's over, and your whole schedule changes. It's like any abrupt change, whether it's good or bad. It's like your system just has to get used to it. But obviously, like Adam said, we care about these guys. We're not friends with them, but definitely friendly, and it affects our careers too, our lives. Like now, my life looks different in terms of scheduling and all that, and good or bad, it's different. But I will say last year in 2023, that was a completely different locker cleanout. Like that was crazy, the emotions because of them losing they were supposed to win up 3-1 in the series, roles reversed down 3-1. So it was more like bonus, like, okay, they can do this. But
Right.
people weren't prepared for last season, obviously the historic season, and then Bergie, retiring. Patrice Bergeron, is he going to do it or not? And the mood, Adam, last time, and by the way, I don't think we were out of there till like 3 or 4 p.m. We were done at like 11:30, 12. The mood was so different. Every guy who talked like just kept saying, I don't even know what to say. Like the shock was still, you could feel it. It was like palatable, and you could feel the shock. And even reporters were still, who are neutral and impartial, we were all like blindsided by it. And it was so different. And it's just sports, right? So you have to remember that for them, it's their lives. So it's not just sports, but it's not like there's an actual death or illness or something. So again, that perspective, but it felt devastating. Like it was just a devastating mood. And to the point where like I was depressed for a week. Like I didn't want to get out of bed. I was
Oh
like, this
man.
is terrible. I'm like, what's wrong with me? I'm not even them. I'm not even their partners or their families. But I was so sad. And this time, although it was really sad in the room, there was a different vibe. There was like a moment of, it felt like there was a bit of an acceptance to that. And, they gutted it out. They tried their best. They fell short. Whereas last year, it just felt like the shock and the disappointment was like, it slapped you in the face. So very different. I wasn't too emotional with this one. But yeah, I don't know. They make pretty much everyone available. So just so fans know, they make everyone available in the Bruins room. A couple guys didn't talk, but if we wanted to talk to them, we could. They're all there that day. They're having exit interviews with their coaches. They're saying goodbye to each other. With the Red Sox, Jahmai, you said some guys are already gone. Like, how does that work? Do you request players? Does everyone speak? How does a locker cleanout work for the Red
No,
Sox?
no, it's completely different. It's definitely you try to request the guys that you want to speak to, but some guys, I mean, in some situations too. Like I remember last year, we ended the season on the road, and obviously there was no playoffs. We were in Baltimore the last series, so it was no playoffs, and we ended the year on the road. So at that time, guys would literally leave the last place, the last city you're in, and go to those countries to some degree, and they're gone. So you don't see them back when you get to Boston because there'll be a clean out prior to the series that you guys left. So pack their bags, ship their things to their homes, and then be out of there, basically catching their own personal flights afterwards. So if you wanted somebody, you kind of had to get them in the last city last year. So
Oh
that's
wow.
kind of how it works, which is actually a little bit new for me because I think every year that I've done it, just about, and I've done the last series, we've either advanced to the playoffs or we were at Fenway Park, so it was a little bit easier because you're already home. So um, that part is definitely unique, I think, in that aspect because everybody doesn't come back to the ballpark. So you got to kind of say your goodbyes already. And I think just the point that you brought up too, like what I think, I feel like this is what makes you good, Sophia, because like you approach this in a way you would, I guess, in your own life. Like you get emotionally invested in this, and like you put your heart into it, obviously. So that's I think why you feel the same emotions as some of these guys do as well. So I thought that was interesting that you said that you were like depressed for a
I was
week
depressed.
after 2 years ago. I mean, it was depressing for me. I was at that game seven, saw
Right,
them
you
lose,
were.
and I walked away. I think any person who uh has a little bit of investment in the team, like you've invested any kind of time, like naturally you'll feel something, you'll feel disappointed. And to be in that room at the same time where they're like, I think it's just the human connection in a way, right? Like everybody is
Mhm.
kind of connected. So there's all these people feeling something. It's almost impossible. You have to be a sociopath probably to not feel some of that as you kind of walk into that situation. So um, there was a lot of that going on in 2021 after the playoffs, but it was more celebratory, if I remember, because I think it was it was disappointing. Like they didn't continue on. As you know, I know we're talking about the Bruins here, but just to connect the Red Sox into this, it was more celebratory because we were on the road. We were in Houston. They just lost the series in 6 games, and now everybody is back at the team hotel, and it's just like you're looking at each other like, wow, man, you're starting to immediately almost take inventory of what was just accomplished. Like, that was pretty impressive
Mhm.
what you guys did. And everybody's now just like almost into that second phase of it's over, but also like, let's enjoy it and celebrate kind of what was accomplished. So, as you guys said, like we're not playing, we don't log ice time, we don't we're not making defensive plays, but we're essentially on the same schedule. We're a part of it. We do the exact same thing, just in different lanes. So like the time investment is similar, and then when it's over, that's the connection I think that everybody can appreciate because they respect you for the hard work that you do. You respect them for how they go about their business, and then like at the end, it's like, well, that's it. So it was very much celebratory. I remember Hein Bloom afterward in a conversation, and kind of just playing in his mind about, all the things that went wrong and like if this could have went right and kind of letting his hair down a little bit and just like talking pretty freely. So that's always interesting because when it's over, like people finally can just breathe because it's a lot of tension, it's a lot of anxiety built up when you're fighting for this thing that everybody wants to go for. So um, the season outlook, I think it's similar because it's professional semi athletes, guys who are driven and they have this exceptional talent, and everybody's special in their way, which is what got them to this level of their sports. So it's always interesting to be with him when it's over because fans are
Yeah.
watching on TV, they see the post game interviews, but like after all that is done and the cameras are off and the lights shut off and the doors are closed, that's kind of a special place to be because you really get to see and experience some of the greatness that goes into it. So I think that part is very interesting.
20 years. Actually, the anniversary
Yeah.
of my first appearance on air is in August. It's August 5th. 2004 was when I made my on-air debut in Portland, Maine as a weekend sports anchor reporter. So I've been doing this for 2 decades and obviously have covered the teams over the years a lot and during playoff runs. And, when you work in local news, you don't travel with the team. You don't, not only do you not travel with the team, obviously, but you don't travel to cover the games, right? Unless
Right.
they get into the
It's a
postseason. That's
big,
when you
yeah.
start to see, right? Like all of the local news outlets are sort of jump on board, expand their coverage of whichever team. And that's when you'll travel. So I had covered the Bruins, Red Sox, Celtics, and Patriots in that capacity where I would, all right, they're in the playoffs or, they're in the championship and we're going to travel, book a commercial flight, book a hotel, do all that stuff. So that was my experience traveling, covering sports. Get to Nesson, start doing the Red Sox sideline gig, and they're like, oh yeah, we travel with the team. So we're not flying commercial. They used to fly commercial back in the day. All the way back in the day, teams used to fly commercial, but now they
Yeah.
charter flights. And so charter flights, basically private flights, and it's just the team personnel and a couple of members of the media, right? And that includes Nesson. And in the case of the Red Sox, it's WEEI. And in the case of the Bruins, it's Sports Hub, and it's Bob Beers and Judd Surratt with the Bruins, and obviously, Jack and Brick, and either you or me or Razor at times, a photographer, and our director Rose. And there are times where the producers, some extra people travel. Brian Cello, I want to make sure I say his name because he's probably listening. Make sure you include me. P-Dub will have a scorebug operator when we go to trips in Canada for some technical reasons I won't get into right now. But anyway. It's quite an experience, and I want to get your take on flying with the team, your first experience flying with the team, what that was like, and everything that goes along with it. You can take it whatever direction you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I'd never traveled either. Well, I worked for the rights holder in Canada when I worked at Sportsnet before I came to Nesson, and then I worked at CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. And so we used to travel for big events like the All-Star Game with Sportsnet. We had behind-the-scenes access. When you're the rights holder, you have all the access, which was really fun, really cool, like being on the bench, first access to everything because you paid for it as the rights holder. But still, we never traveled with a team because we didn't cover a particular team. We covered the entire NHL. So all economy, not first class, like people might think, definitely not. And then I actually went to Korea in July of 2019. I moved to Boston in August of 2019, so a month later. But my final contract with the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, I went to Korea for a month to cover the World Championships of Swimming and Diving in Gwangju, Korea for FINA. And that was a crazy experience. Also not first class. So as you can imagine, I think we took 2 flights. From Toronto to Seoul, which was direct, which was nice. And then Seoul to Gwangju. And that first flight, I can't remember, but somewhere in the 12 to 14 to 15 hour range, middle seat, very uncomfortable for 12 hours. Yeah. Middle seat. I mean, but yeah, CBC was definitely not paying first class government. It's run, or it's partly funded by the Canadian government. So, you can check all that. They wouldn't be putting the taxes to us flying first class to cover the World Championships, but such a cool experience. But yeah, I mean, basically what I'm trying to say is I've traveled economy so many times to cover the snowboarding championships in Utah, all this kind of stuff. And that's just what you're used to, unless you were born into a lot of money, which I was not. I still to this day have never flown first class on a plane, but the chartered experience feels like first class for sure. I think my favorite thing about chartering a plane, and it feels like first class because the seats are bigger, they're more comfortable, you can recline way further. You're not in these pods where you can sleep like you see a lot, but so none of that, but just bigger seats, more space, and 2 two to an aisle. So there's no middle seat business. Lots of leg room, which is great. But I think my favorite part is just not stressing about security. You get checked, they check your bags, you get your passport checked, all that kind of stuff. But you're never worried about, is the security line going to be an hour? Is it going to be, 15 minutes, and like rushing to get there early, which is my biggest source of anxiety. It's just, have I given myself enough time? Because you have to factor in, like, when you're traveling anywhere, traffic, check-in lines, because putting your bag through, then airport security, and you always give yourself so much time that, or if you're like me, you've been late before, but you usually try to give yourself so much time that you end up just like twiddling your thumbs at the airport. So I love that part. You pull up to Hanscom, where they fly out of. You park your car. We used to get valeted at them, which was really cool. Before COVID, we would drive our cars to the plane, on the tarmac, and they would take them and park them for you. And then when we landed you guys probably assume this, maybe you don't know this, but after a road trip, it's very rare that unless you're on the West Coast, flying out the next morning, you're getting home as soon as possible. If you're in Washington or Toronto or Philadelphia or whatever, even Chicago, you're flying out the next morning. That night. So you'd be landing at 2, 3 a.m., depending on the time, as you know. But our cars, Adam, in the dead of winter, the hockey season, used to be turned on and warm and ready for us in the parking. Yes, see your face? In the parking lot. So the players get off the plane first, staff after that, and then media last. We would go, and your car would be warm and ready to go. And you would basically like walk off the flight, and your car would be right there. And they would also shovel, if there was snow, they would shovel it off for you. Whereas, I know, so like, oh, now I'm sounding so privileged because we don't get that anymore. You got to walk all the way to the parking lot.
I know. It's so tough.
It's professional sports, so you understand that it's cyclical and guys move on, they transition. Rarely do people end up in the same uniform that they started with. So it's a thing that you expect. But some guys, you feel like, he should have been a Red Sox for his entire career.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I was just thinking about that 2018 team for a second, all those players that you mentioned that were a part of that before 2018, during 2018, and a little bit after 2018. I mean, all those guys are gone now, with the exception of Rafael Devers. Rafi's the only one that's still there from those years, and it really was the end of an era. And I was thinking about it when you were talking about Xander and securing the bag in San Diego, the big deal. I think it was $290 over 11 years, which really raised a lot of eyebrows. People didn't expect him to sign for that much money. That includes the Red Sox, I think, when they were talking about, maybe bringing him back to Boston. But, you never blame the player for that, right? I mean, there are three things, right? There's the business of baseball, there's the game of baseball, and then there's the human element of it, as you were talking about it, right? It's like, two of those things are really out of the player's control, right? The off the field stuff is something that's in their controls. The game of baseball, it is in their control, right? How they perform. So it's really the one thing that's out of their control. It's the business of baseball. It's the contracts. It's the money. It's what teams want to pay you, what teams don't want to pay you, and what you think your value's worth. And obviously, Xander's value, was high here. He meant a lot to people here in Boston. But at the end of the day, it was San Diego that was, going on a shopping spree and picking up all these guys, money on them. But, I was wondering, Jahmai, and again, like, saw your conversation and saw the media scrum, saw how he was with the media. It didn't seem like there was any bitterness towards the Red Sox in his comments. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I asked him that question, actually. I said, now that you've returned here, because again, last season, in 23, he was healthy, fully healthy. He was playing with San Diego, and the Red Sox were there at Petco Park playing the Padres. But coming back home, so to speak, quote unquote, it's a different feel. Like you're coming back to the place where you came up. I mean, he debuted here again. He was signed here as a teenager, right? So I asked him, does this kind of bring a completion to your chapter as a member of the Red Sox? And he's like, yeah, I think so. I think now I can say, that was a great part. No hard feelings. He mentioned it, no hard feelings because of that business side aspect. He felt like both sides, there was no animosity during his signing or the lack thereof of his contract extension. He feels like this is now full circle for him. So he's ready to begin or continue this next half of his career. But this was one of those things where he had to experience it to feel it, the emotion, and having that standing ovation and playing a video tribute of all his best moments ever as a member of the Red Sox. I mean, think about this when he was wearing number 72 in 2013. You know how guys, when they
Yeah.
first come up, they don't have really solid numbers. So it was all those things. And then winning World Series twice, during his time here, and all the accolades and everything that he accomplished. And it feels like now he can kind of put that behind him and start focusing on what they're doing in San Diego. And they're a team that's playing really well right now. It seems like this offense is hitting on all cylinders. So he was eager to get back in it. And he's going to have an MRI here when they transition over to Texas and just see where he's at. But he said he feels great. And the thing is healing pretty good. But it'll be a challenge, I guess, to probably find that rhythm for him again. But Xander, he always seems to figure it out.
Yeah, he does. And I was thinking about number 72 and thinking about the current Red Sox roster. You know, David Hamilton's wearing number 70, right? And you think
Yeah.
about players like that who come up and, they go through speed bumps. I think Jaron Duran is a perfect example of that, right? A guy who had issues on the field, some issues off the field, dealing with mental health, overcoming those, becoming a very successful player. David Hamilton, when he was first called up, looked overwhelmed a little. Now he's catching up to the speed of the game a little bit. We'll see how things play out for him over time, but he's looked really good so far. And you can say that about some other young players as well. And I think that's sort of leading to my next question for you, Jahmai. In terms of covering the Red Sox and covering athletes over the years, and when you cover a team for an extended period of time, you see the same faces year in and year out. And in this case, since we're talking about Xander Bogaerts, watching his maturity and growth over the years, right? And so I started covering him as soon as he got called up to Boston in 2013. And I was in your position for a couple of years on and off, traveling with the team, watching his growth and development on the field, slowly becoming one of the stars on the Red Sox roster. It was really fun to watch. How much fun is it for you to see some of these young players now, watch them sort of come up, go through some struggles, and now experience success?
Yeah, it's great. It's great to see that turnaround. And you mentioned Jaron Duran, and it's crazy to see where he has taken his game. You think about missing some fly balls a couple years ago and having a complete meltdown in Kansas City, and then Raimel Tapia hitting a inside the park home run after he misplayed that fly ball that went over his head and kind of just watched it and stared, to becoming the player, the leader, and the athlete that he is for this team. He really is a table setter. So he's done so much great things for this team, and he should be an all-star. Hopefully we find out in short time what that situation looks like for him. But to see the turnaround is great because you understand the hard work that these guys put in every single day, showing up. It is a major grind to be on the baseball schedule and to have a body that's able to withhold 80 plus games at this point consecutively is impressive in this day and age, even though the pitch clock has, added years to my career, and, it's going to certainly add years to these people as well who are actually playing the game on the field. But man, to see his turnaround has been great. And then David Hamilton, I mean, he came up and seemed like he was playing, with concrete in his feet. So not playing fast, kind of playing a little bit timid. And now to see what he's been able to turn into, almost hitting 300 now, and he's hitting for power. He's hitting line drives all over the ballpark. Has been great too. And that's kind of what this Red Sox team has been. They're getting these contributions from a lot of these young guys, which is contributed to a lot of where they are right now, in a position to be buyers as a trade deadline fastly approaches. So I don't know if I say I didn't fully expect this, but I thought this team would compete because the Hefe at the helm, Alex Cora, he's going to be a guy who is going to get the best out of his players and maximize their talent 100%. But what they're doing right now has been impressive, and they're teetering, just a bit over 500. So it's all due because of what these young guys have been able to do. And like I said, Jaron Duran has been that. David Hamilton has been that. Emmanuel Valdez has been that since he got called up, or recalled, I should say, about a month ago. He's been just hitting the daylights out of the baseball. His defense has improved. So Wilyer Abreu, also another guy who's doing fantastic stuff. So to watch the development, it's been great. It's been great for sure. And makes it a lot more exciting because you get a lot more competitive games, and these guys have been playing really well lately, with the exception of, I guess, the last two games that San Diego has come in here. So it's just a part of the ebbs and flows of a season. You can never get too high. You never get too low. You kind of just ride the wave and see where it takes you.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. It has been a lot of fun to watch the young players and their evolution. And, and I was thinking as you were talking, because you are so close to the team, because you travel with the team, you're there in the team hotels, you're there every day with the team. And you mentioned the young players, and we're getting to know them on the baseball field and seeing their maturation. But is there anybody that sort of stood out to you personality-wise that you didn't know as well, maybe coming into the year, that you're getting to know a little bit better, and you're saying, oh, man, that guy's funny, or that guy knows how to handle this business, or, man, that guy's got some serious swagger? Is there anything that you can share with us about a particular player that sort of fits that category?
Yeah, that's a great question that you asked. And now you got me racking my brain to think about this one. I mean, it's always the usual suspects. The Tristan Casas, of course, this guy's incredible, and he's super funny. But actually, you know what? Not a young guy, but a guy that is not even playing right now, but it will be back maybe in a few weeks, hopefully, for making a couple rehab starts. That's Liam Hendricks is pretty hilarious.
The rain's been nice because I've been catching up on things I need to do, seeing people, restaurants, friends, this and that, my nieces. It's been a lovely trip. I just want the sun to come out because I'm planning to visit one of the lakes, Canada, just like America, of course, but Canada and Ontario, ton of lakes. Oh, who's that? Who is
do you
that?
hear that? Do you hear that?
Yes,
That is our dog Mabel, who I think might have spotted a bird that just had the audacity to fly into our backyard. So you may hear Mabel from time to time barking. So just to give you a little idea of what I'm working with, not to sort of hijack your story about being back home. But since we heard the bark, I am doing the podcast, obviously, from my house. My wife is 100% remote in her job. My daughter is at school right now, so she's out of the house. Mabel is almost 1. She requires a lot of exercise. So every morning I put Millie on the bus, my daughter, and then we take her for like a 2-mile walk, and she's good for a little bit. And then after this podcast, I'm going to take her in the backyard. We have a fenced-in backyard, and she's going to run around. She'll get tired again. But in that sort of little window where she's not exercising, she can get a little barky. So you may hear Mabel say hi from time to time, just so you know who that is. So there you go.
If I'm not putting you on the spot right now, but if at any point in the show she comes close to you, make her hop up, bring her on. I'd love to see her.
It was Kyle Farmer. Had a gift basket of some sort, and there was some summer sausage in there. He apparently doesn't like summer sausage, so he threw it on the table within the clubhouse. And they were playing the Chicago White Sox, and they were struggling offensively. It wasn't great at all. And the hitting coach went in there. He was like, "We got to do something." He grabbed the summer sausage, and it was, I got to look at the lineup, but it was Jeffers and somebody. He tossed it to Jeffers, and Jeffers handed it to the other guy, the guy previous, which I think was Max Kepler. I think it was Max Kepler. I have to go back and confirm this. But he handed them the summer sausage. They both touched it and went back-to-back jacks. They went on to come back, and I think it was a 5-0 deficit that they were playing. And they beat the White Sox in comeback fashion, back-to-back home runs, and the summer sausage. The story was birthed from there. Because I'm sure, like, everybody comes into that city, every reporter in my role, It was like, hey, I want to talk about the summer sausage. And they're like, okay, whatever. How are you going to get this through customs? He was like, we're going to pack it away. We got it in saran wrap now. And I'm like, okay, what about if and when the streak ends, will the sausage still kind of continue its shelf life? And he's like, the sausage is here to stay now.
So he hits a home run.
Oh, I know what
they
you're
went
about
to
to say.
toss him the sausage.